I want to ask, when you received an award for the Prince's Trust, what was it like meeting Prince Charles?
It was cool. Prince Charles, he's very personable. He's very personable. He's very tactile. Because I wasn't, you go through, like, before you meet him, they kind of break down these, like, rules of what you can and kind of can't do and stuff like that. Okay. But there weren't a lot, really. Like, they were just like, be cool. He's really chill. Yeah. And we met, and he was just, mate, he was really cool, man. Like, he's actually proper cool. And of course, someone like Prince Charles, he grows up his whole life learning how to engage with people and learning how to engage with quote-unquote regular people. So they know how to engage. It's not like Prince Charles, they walk into a room and he's like bowed. Like, no, he's like actually, I think when you're at that level, you actually have to like bring yourself so much like lower just so you can make people feel comfortable because people recognize who you are. But it was great, man. I met him twice that day, actually. So once was here in Bristol, he visited here at the Prince's Trust building here, and then we went to his summer home in Highgrove later on that day. And it was great, man. It was a really good time. Something that God ordained. Like, literally, I got to, basically they were doing this big press kind of junction for Prince Charles visiting. And no one told me that Prince Charles was coming. They just said that there's going to be someone, because they can never tell you when, like, a royal is going to be there. The only people who know are the people organizing it, and then they just say, look, someone important is going to be here. Are you available this time? I said, yeah, cool. Yeah. And then I got there, and they're like, cool, well, Prince Charles is going to be here in like 20 minutes, and this is what's happening. So I was like, thank God I was wearing my blazer, because I was just like, oh, damn, I was like, I did not want to meet him in like jeans and a t-shirt. But, and yeah, he came, and astronaut Tim Peake was there as well. He had just come back to Earth maybe about a few months before, and so I got to meet with them and just speak to them. He was
from the International Space Station.
Yeah, from the International Space Station. Yeah, Tim Peake was there as well, and we just spoke, and then they kind of wanted me to be essentially the poster boy for the moment. So I took a picture with him and Prince Charles, and then we met again later on that day. It was cool, man. It was just a great time,
I'm sure that must have been one of the highlights of
the past 5 years, for sure.
Career,
Definitely the past 5 years. I mean, because I think for me, I was in that space because I had started Milk for Tea, which was a company that I had started from nothing, and so to have these type of doors open from starting something that from basically my head, like, this is a creative idea, I'm going to start this, and because I've done this, now these other opportunities are opening up. It was just a great thing, man, and better is to come, man. The latter definitely will be greater. The best is yet to come. But that was a great experience, and I also got to meet Jerry Oliver, which I was actually really proud. And he's Ginger Spice for anyone who's a Spice Girls fan. But anyway, I got to meet her too. But yeah.
About Milk for Tea. Now, I'm going to ask a really odd question. Now, I like nuance. For example, when I watch a film, right, whether on Netflix or on one of those streaming sites, I tend to replay over and over again a certain moment, and I could literally just because someone looked a certain way, they had a certain expression, or someone moved in the background just as an event was about to pop off. Like, I love exploring nuances, and I noticed that in your job history, one of your positions when you were coming up was that you used to work at Reese. Tailoring specialist for men's wear.
Throwback, yeah.
Now, for Milk for Tea, you had it as a platform that enabled men to become more emotionally articulate.
Yes.
Right? So, to me, it felt as if, not that, I don't know if you did this intentionally, but it felt as if the way you were specializing clothes for men back then in Reese, you're here, and you are tailoring men to be more productive, more accessible, more at ease in today's society. Because I know there's a whole thing where, especially black men in general, but especially black men, we have to be so hard. We have to be rocks. We can't show our emotions. We can't show weakness. And I was like that for the longest time. I'm still on a journey to be more emotionally open.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a connection between that particular job at Reese and your current role in Milk for Tea?
Mate, it's so interesting because Reese is a clothing shop, but like I'm telling you, Reese has played such a big role in everything that I've done since then. It was really interesting. Actually, I met TJ through Reese. Actually, that's
Okay.
right. That's where I first met TJ. It's interesting, man. Like again, we're looking at this. Another space where I'm being called higher. Like Reese is a space where like literally they have a certain level of excellence, and they're like this is the level, this is the bar, and you have to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I'm in another space where people are just calling me higher, whether it's through the way I look, whether it's through the way I operate, customer service, how I carry myself, which are things I already had. But then Reese just helped to just shape it a bit more and to sharpen it a bit more. And so for me, I'm really thankful I was there for 4 years. And I'm just thankful that, again, it was another space that just, again, called me higher. Now, it was a very challenging 4 years. It was good, laugh, cry, blood, sweat, tears of 4 years. But it really helped cultivate me and helped sharpen me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I learned business through Reese, understanding how things sell and understanding how to sell. People by people first. All of those business and sales kind of techniques I learned, really through Reese and were sharpened through Reese at least. And then also too, having clothes that you couldn't afford would be accessible to you. Because then now you get into kind of progress your outer being as well. You've got like these nice suits that cost like 500 600 quid, and you're like, I wouldn't pay for this because. But then now you can, and now you're not just good on the inside, but now you look the part on the outside. And so now it's just like, so that's what I'm really thankful for to Reese. And also too, it's just a great place to meet so many different people. I've met so many business connections, so many friends of mine through Reese. I'm very thankful for my time there. Very, very thankful.
You said something earlier. It was a small thing you said. You used the word grooming and then you immediately retracted it, citing that it was a bad word or it's not a good word.
But I guess sometimes it has a negative connotation, like some sex trafficking or something like that, but essentially I have been groomed in a good way. I probably since the very beginning.
The reason why I go back to that is because I'm very particular about the definitions of certain words or certain sayings. For example, what's your definition of racism? For me, so I'll give you my definition first. For me,
can we drink this?
It's for you, man.
Great.
Pick some sweets. I can't eat this all. I need to be on a low sugar diet.
I didn't know if this is like a show, or like what we're doing, but now this is cool.
So my definition of racism is purely systematic. Unless you have the power to affect someone's social standing, someone's education, the way money flows in and out of their household, how they are represented in the judiciary system. Unless you have that power, you are not racist. You are merely prejudiced, and your prejudice is based upon skin and whatever cultural background that person's from. Okay, that's prejudice. I don't like to mix my words.
100%.
Racism is strictly systematic because I'm sure that every human being has been prejudiced along since the conception, since the birth of humanity. Everyone has been prejudiced, but racism only really became an actual thing post transatlantic slave trade. I disagree with the whole. If you go into the Oxford Dictionary, racism, prejudice based upon skin color, and that's minimizing the issues. What's your definition of this?
I agree that there is a distinction between racism and prejudice, and I think right now, where we're at now, modern day, people are using them synonymously, and they're very different. And people, I think, are calling some things racist when it's actually prejudice, and I think that's where some things are getting lost. Because you have a lot of people, particularly a lot of white people, who will say, I'm not racist, and it's like, well, actually, you may not be, but you're actually incredibly prejudiced towards black people, which is just as bad. But it's like, actually, we should make more of a distinction between the two. There's a lot of prejudice. If we walk up here, people are gonna operate differently because we're black. And so So yeah, there is a difference between racism, but I mean, racism essentially is discrimination due to skin color. But I will agree in the sense that like it's very systemic. What I will probably add to that is that actually what we do realize, and I think the nuance of it is recognizing that these little interactions every day do actually play into the system as a whole. You know, because again, this person right here, I'm looking at a white couple walking down the street right now, and how they engage with me on the street may then go, if this person is in charge of hiring people at his job, then that will actually play a role into his prejudice and how he engages with me on the street as a black man, may actually play a role in terms of who he chooses to hire at his job, which then becomes a systemic thing because he's playing into a wider system.
Yeah.
So they all linked. I think it's important, like you said, to be impeccable with our words, and I think sometimes, I think racism now has lost its zest and meaning because it's just thrown everywhere. It's like, that's racist. And it's like, no, like actually we need to really recognize when something is racist and when actually it's just prejudice and bias. And again, it doesn't make it any better because I think prejudice is a horrible thing as well. And I think a lot of people aren't really willing to interrogate their prejudice and their biases. I think particularly a lot of white people who feel threatened by that and accused by that. But I think it's really important that we all interrogate the biases we have, no matter what. So those I mean, so yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
Also, the conversations these days regarding any racial issue, they seem so misdirected, personally. And I think, so you know how in America, right, the discourse is that you are either liberal or you are left. They don't really use the word liberal in America.
Democrat.
Left wing or right wing.
Yeah.
Democrat, Republican. Yeah. And then there's no spectrum.
Yeah.
And then the conversation is so angry, so ignorant, so like no one actually wants to talk to each other to learn or to become more tolerant, see how this idea. I think at heart we are all moderate. Me personally, like the more I've grown up in my career and in my pastimes, like I work in my main career is working as a innovator and scientist and engineer in the semiconductor tech background.
Yeah.
So I'm very high up there in terms of like what I do with tech, what I do with research, what I do with exploring new technologies, as well as being a mentor and a tutor in the academic scene. The older I get and the more accolades I attain and the more I evolve, the more my thinking becomes slightly more conservative. Now that's not, we should have all the money and you guys remain poor. No. I like to keep my what I've attained. I want to keep sustaining that.
Yeah.
However, I do believe that everyone should have a minimum good quality of life. I do believe that education should be accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
I do believe that food, drink, water, basic amenities should be accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
I do not believe that just because someone's not from your area, you shouldn't help.
100%.
I'm very moderate. Now, the reason why I'm using that as an example is because in our current racial discourse, I believe that there's a lot of pitchforks and a lot of sides, right? No one wins.
Yeah.
But the people who lose out the most are the people who are actually suffering from the systemic racism. How do you think we can improve that conversation to be more tolerant? Not just more tolerant, but to focus on the issue at hand. How do you think we can improve the way we talk about racism, the way we talk about injustice? How do you think we can improve that?
Well, it's a very good question, and there's a lot of different factors in that, and there's a few different things that you've mentioned as well. I think in terms of the political spectrum, again, I think more people are more moderate than they actually think they are. I think even people who identify as being liberal, when you break it down, they probably actually are more moderate on paper.
So do you think it's a case of the media sort of shepherding people into categories that they're not necessarily part of?
No, I think politics by its very nature, modern politics by its very nature, are polarizing. Mm-hmm. I think when you have either you're conservative or you're Labour, or you're Republican or you're Democrat, or you're it's like, it's labeling, it's boxing, and then they come with their own set of connotations. Like, so for instance, if you're liberal, you're like, people think you're this, you're vegan, you're pro-choice, you're all this, and if you're conservative, you're racist, and it's just like, it's very polarizing, and it doesn't allow any room for nuance, it doesn't allow any room for growth, for learning, for any cross-party kind of like discussions. And these issues are very layered. And so for me, to be honest, politically speaking, I don't even engage with the spectrum. Like, my political viewpoints cannot be summarized in terms of any party, especially not any party that exists right now. And so I think like a lot of us, I think many of us, particularly our generation, are politically homeless. I think we side with whoever has the most of what we agree with. There's not really a party out there, at least for me particularly, that I'm like, all right, this party gets me fully, or this party even gets me 90%. It's like you just go with whatever party is like, all right, what's the best thing that I feel is best for myself and my community? And so I think, again, then on top of that, right now in the West, particularly with America and the UK, we have very polarizing figures within politics. So now, not only does it, now being a Republican doesn't just mean being a Republican. Now it's like, if you're a Republican, that means you voted for Trump and you support Trump, which means a whole other variety of things. So now it's even more polarizing because you have something that's polarizing in it. And the same thing with Boris Johnson. It's like, you're conservative. Like, it's like, really, you're supporting what Boris Johnson does? It's like, fair enough, you want to be conservative, but you're going to support that. So now it's like you have these leaders, and this goes back to leadership, why it's so important. Because now these leaders, you see how they can exacerbate issues that are already, politics are already polarizing, but you have these people who are even making them more extreme.
So it's no longer a case of values, it's a case of figureheads.
Yeah, 100%. And so it's made a challenging conversation like politics even more challenging. And that's why we all have to be very cognizant of who we vote for. And I think everyone out there, you have to engage in politics. And I'm speaking predominantly to our generation and the younger generation. You have to engage in politics. We cannot sit on the outside of politics and expect things to change for us. We cannot do that. We have to understand policy, and I get it, like politics, they make politics hard to understand on purpose. They want politics to stay, particularly within this country, in the UK, they want politics to be challenging, and they want only a certain demographic of people to engage in them. So we have to understand politics, we have to understand policies and how they impact us and our communities, and we have to register to vote and get out there and vote. If you don't vote, you may think it's rigged, you may have a bunch of different conspiracy theories, don't get me wrong, I have a variety of different theories myself, but this is the tools that we have right now. So if we don't vote, we can't sit here and complain that we're not voting. So you've got to get out there and vote. And I'm someone who's very passionate about that, particularly getting more young people engaged in politics, because that's our power. And again, no matter what you think about it, that's our power, and we have to utilize it. So we're seeing, there's a big disengagement with young people in politics, and that only plays to the powers that are already existing right now in politics.
That's been a consistent discussion for the last decade. That there's a huge rift or void between the youth and what people are doing in Parliament, both here and in America as well. What people are doing in Senate, I think they call it.
So you have the Senate, you have the House of Representatives, so there's a big people are very disengaged. I would say in America there are more young people engaged in politics, I think, than in the UK. I think just because of a variety of different things, and I think there's some very exciting younger characters. You look at AOC, who is doing just such an incredible job in terms of modernizing politics, making them young, making it cool, making them engaging. You've got I forget the other person's name, but there's just some really interesting figures right now in American politics popping up who are diverse, who are Muslim, who are women, who are who come from Latino backgrounds, who come from Black backgrounds, and it's just very interesting. I think we don't see that so much in the UK. I think it's still very dry. Don't get me wrong, it's dry in the States as well, but I'm still looking for these exciting figures to start popping up. There is someone that's I believe she's the MP for Coventry or somewhere there. She's exciting to me. There's different people who you see and you're like, okay, cool, there's some freshness coming out, but we need more people engaged in politics. That doesn't mean people have to go into a political office, but we need everyone engaged. That is something that I will always fight for.
So, what advice would you have to give the youth in today's day and age?
About anything? Or
About anything. It could be anything, like something that you were told when you were growing up that helped shape you, or something that has helped steer your life as an adult. What advice could you pass on to a group of youth?
I would say, especially if you're young, recognize that you were not born to fit in, like we weren't. And I think if I had understood that earlier, I would have been even better off. I'm someone who, for a large part of my life, I didn't feel like I fit in. I just didn't. I'm a different type of person to the people that I was around at the time. How I embody my personality, how I embody my blackness, how I embody my masculinity is very different, and it definitely was at the time. And I think growing up, people didn't really understand me, and I was bullied a lot all through school, even up into high school. I was bullied quite severely. When I was 13, I tried to kill myself, and so it was really tough for me because I was just very different, and people didn't really get me, and so people attacked me, and so for me, and I see that a lot with young people not feeling like they fit in. But then you get older and you recognize you're not supposed to fit in. Like, you're supposed to be who you are. And so I would say, for one, don't try and, I understand when you're young, it's about like safety. You want to fit in, you want to be part of the tribe. But be who you are. Be true to who you are. It's really cliche, but be true to who you are. That's the first thing I would say. Take risks. Take risks. Go for it. Like, really, really go for it. My life has been made so much better because I've taken risks, and as you get older, they become more calculated, and you get more wise, you gain more wisdom rather, but take risks. You gotta go for it, and you gotta go for the things you want in life. I'd also say to surround yourself around people who can help elevate you, and who you can be inspired by. So much of what we think about ourselves and what we're able to achieve is based on around the people we're around. Again, I've shared a part of my story about like these different environments I was in. I was constantly around people who were just achieving and who were living in excellence, and like I picked up on that and I think I'm naturally like that. But then just being in a space where that can be cultivated even more, that's so important. So if you're a young person listening to this and you think and you're the smartest person in your group, then you need a new group. You need people who are going to be challenging you, who are going to be inspiring you, and helping to push you higher, again, and you can do the same for them, and who also two people who are going in the same direction as you, even if they are intelligent or, whatever, you may like them. Are they going in the same direction as you? Do they want the same things out of life from you? Do they share your values? If the answer is no, then you need to find new people, and it's just as simple as that. I'm very cut dry with that, because I've seen that play out way too many times, particularly in my life and other people's life. And I'm a nice guy, but I think you know me as well. Like, I'm a nice guy, but no one stops the mission. No one gets in the way. And so I would do it with respect, I would do it with love and care, but no one gets in the way. And I joke around and I say I'm glad my parents are supporting me, because if they weren't, it's just
not very few supporters.
No, exactly. I'm glad my parents support me, but I'm joking. But like, that's just for me. I'm determined. I'm very driven, and I'm very determined. And I think the things that I've been able to do in your life, similar to yourself, the things I've been able to do in my life, you don't get there by just allowing life to happen to you. You have to take control of and take responsibility for your life. And that's the last thing I probably would say. Take responsibility for your life. Like, don't just let things happen to you. Say, look, this is where I want to go, and this is what I'm going to do to get there. And there's got to be this real hunger in you, and this real drive in you. And you've got to find it. There are a lot of young people I see that are very unsure, and that's okay. I've been, a lot of my life has been very explorative, experimental. I've tried a lot of different careers, different things, and all this stuff like that. And that's part of growing up. Allow yourself to experience different things, but there's got to be a drive there. And like, to me, that's what I resonate most with people. And so when I see young people who are driven, it excites me. It really, really excites me, because it's too easy, particularly in the social media world, to just think you're going to fall back on your looks or fall back on the fact that you have 20,000 followers on Instagram or something. You've got to be driven. You've got to really want it. And, again, that's the only way I really know how to operate. Like, I do put my hands up with that. Like, people who don't have that, I'm like, you got to find it. You've got to find it, because if you think that you're going to get to where you want to go without it, you're mistaken. Now, you may not want to go anywhere. That's on you. That's on you. But for the people who want to get somewhere, find that drive, get it, use it, and go for it.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, this has been a good. This has been a good conversation, man.
I appreciate it. Like what you said, I could barely say anything to like you're right. We think alike, and we are driven to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Like the way you think, the way you speak, the way you're just eloquent with your words. I think it's much needed in our community and for the youth and for the elders as well. Like even older people can benefit from the way you talk. So I thank you very much for giving me the time.
Thank you for having me, man.
And for expressing yourself and for showing us all about who you really are and what you really believe in.
Thank you,
So,
brother.
thank you very much.
And all the best with what you're doing, man. I'm glad that I can support you in this way. Like, this is cool, bro. And,
Much
like,
appreciated.
keep doing your thing.
Thank you. Awkward.
Yeah.
Abrupt.
Cool.